Okay, we'll close public comment and then move on to reports. Ms. Howard, any reports this evening?
Just to continue up on my former announcement now report, Elisa Naylor, our Human Services Director, was awarded a scholarship from a national organization in recognition of her work on behalf of immigrants in town from Welcoming America, the national organization. She was selected from a broad pool, and she's one of just a handful from across the country. So it's really nice to see our staff be recognized, and she's going to get to travel, and she's been assigned a mentor, and it's really a recognition of the great work she's been doing, and it comes in time for our activities on Welcoming America. So it's just a great honor, and I wanted to make sure the public knew.
Heather, did you want to comment on the St. Helena packing?
Excuse me?
St. Helena packing on the tour? Okay.
Can I ask the police commissioner a question? I was talking to Nick on other matters, and the state has gone to a 911 texting system, and I think that we don't have it here locally, but the county has the 911. But I think that's something we'll want to make sure the public is aware of, so maybe the Public Safety Committee can look into it and let us know.
That's great. Thank you. We still have our September meeting coming up, so I'll put that on the agenda and in particular to discuss outreach so we can let people know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Krummeller, any reports? Mr. Miller?
No, I'm just going to mention, just piggyback on Councilwoman Howard's report, that on September 25th, between 1 and 3, at Heinz Plaza, which is in front of the beautiful library, St. Helena Packing, which is a program that's designed to send packages of food home with students on Fridays for carry them over through the weekend. It's about 420 students involved. We'll have a fundraiser, and it's called Fill the Bowls. And celebrity chef Brian Duffy will be there. So anyone interested, you can go online, Princeton Human Services website, or you can go onto the St. Helena Packing website to purchase tickets. I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Butler?
No.
Mr. Sonic? Okay, I just had a couple reports. The first is I wanted to thank the fire department for holding a 9/11 ceremony yesterday. It was very nice. And I also wanted to thank St. Paul's for the display they put out. It was really beautiful, and I hope everyone got to see it. They had flags that were lining the lawn in front of the church. And I also just wanted to let council know that the clerk's office is working with the chairs of the boards, committees, and commissions to set up a couple breakfast meetings. We're splitting up the chairs into 2 groups, and this will be the first set of meetings where we'll start to talk about our goals and priorities for the upcoming year, 2017. So hoping to get those scheduled by the end of this week so everyone can get those dates on their calendars.
And just, Mayor, you're sort of grouping them topically so we can think across where issues are cross-cutting?
Exactly. So one is more of the health and social services commissions, and then the other has to do more with planning and zoning and environmental commission, those types of groups, and transportation. Are there any staff reports? Ms. Stockman, Deanna, do you mind sitting or just rotating a little bit so we can see you? You have to assume Bob's position at the head of the table.
Just trying to make my own way, and I'm back in his footsteps now. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of short announcements and then reports. On Saturday, members of staff and some volunteers from our Public Transit Advisory Committee will be manning a table at the Princeton University Community and Staff Day to get the word out about the freebie and other alternative transportation systems that we have in town, including the community bike share, as well as the Tiger Transit, which is open and free to all people in Princeton. And also on the 21st of September, we will be holding a neighborhood meeting for Bank Street. This has been an ongoing design project probably for the last 10 years, and we've been investigating the cost to underground utilities on that street. And so we'll be bringing it back to the neighborhood one more time just to get a definitive answer as to whether or not they're interested in pursuing assessments for the cost of the undergrounding. Otherwise, we'll move ahead with finalizing plans so that the road project can move ahead next summer. And related to that, we'll be going to the Historic Preservation Commission meeting on Monday to discuss using granite or Belgian block curb on Bank Street as well. The Snowden Lane Sewer Project that we're working on in conjunction with the Sewer Operating Committee started today, and it's estimated that that project will take about 10 weeks' time. The work is proceeding on Snowden Lane from Overbrook. It's moving north towards Van Dyke. That's the first phase of work. Then the second phase of work will be on Van Dyke, again, in about another 3-week period. The third phase then will go from Van Dyke up Snowden Lane, approximately 1,100 feet to complete the project. And that's a much-needed project. That's one of our areas that is still on septic. So this is an assessment project that's providing for sanitary sewer for those residents. Valley Road work is pretty much completed except for the pavement, the milling and the resurfacing project. We are waiting for the water company to finish their water main connection on Harris Road, which ties into Valley Road, but that should be completed within the next couple of weeks. And so I think at the next meeting, we would be coming to council with a resolution as to whether or not you want to move ahead with the milling and resurfacing of Valley Road this year or next year. If you recall, we have money from the state that's dedicated to the paving costs for the project, and based on the governor's shutdown order 210, we can't move ahead with that work. And so we would be looking to council to give us an indication if you want us to move ahead to get paving completed prior to winter, or if we should button it up for winter and wait until the spring when hopefully the Transportation Trust Fund has been replenished.
How much money are we expecting to get from the state for that project?
We had a grant of approximately $280,000 from the state, and the way their system works is you get 75% of that money up front. So we've already received our 75% allotment, so we're looking at about $70,000 that is still outstanding from the state.
Yeah, Ms. Crumler?
But isn't it true that it's okay to wait? I mean, it's almost to wait and leave it without that smooth surface on just for the winter. I mean, it's okay process-wise for the road.
For the road, it's fine. We may be incurring additional mobilization costs if we put the contractor off for the 4 to 6 months. And then we also are subject to changes in the cost of asphalt, which it reflects back on the cost of gasoline. There is an allowance within our contract, so if the price does change, then we have to pay more money, but if the price doesn't change, then that line item goes away. So it's also subject to coming into play.
And Dan, is there any risk that if we do pay for it, that the state doesn't come through because they say, well, you found the money?
That's what I think.
That would be my fear, right?
That's always the risk. But there have been a lot of municipalities around the state that are just moving ahead. And so I think they may get to a point with political will by the time they work through this shutdown order that
you know,
there
we
may
just-
be a backlash of not paying us back.
The other thing we might want to consider doing, especially if we decide to wait, is to put together a resolution in support of some legislation that Assemblywoman Moyo has proposed, and that is to have the state compensate municipalities for any additional costs that they incur for delays because of the shutdown. So I think maybe at a minimum, we can try to put something like that together in support of that for the next meeting. But and I think it would also be helpful for us to understand, I know you can't predict the future, but just what the variables are. If we can just do a quick summary of what the different factors are so we can make an informed decision about what the risks are either way.
Yep, I'll bring that back to the next meeting.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question, follow-up? Residents often express a lot of interest in putting the utilities underground, the telephone wires, et cetera. Do you have a number off handy at the tip of your fingers? I don't mean to put you on the spot about what the estimated cost of that is per residence, if that's how you have it.
We have it per address for Bank Street, and it's currently estimated at about $70,000. We did the same exercise for Edge Hill Street a couple of years ago, and for that street, for the utilities that were involved, it was approximately, I want to say about $50,000 to $60,000.
Thank you.
And that's with a lot of our staff figuring out ways to cut costs.
Yeah,
So people
those
should
costs are way
understand.
lower than what was originally proposed.
Putting wires underground is just astronomical. People have to, I mean, it's just something that I hear about constantly, so any chance I get, I want people to understand that because it's hard to swallow.
Right, and unfortunately, there is no legal requirement for the utilities to pay for it, and they can't pass it on to the ratepayers, so it's passed on to the benefited users.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other reports from staff? Mr. Huff? Definitely, we're going to put it on double time.
Yep.
Bob, no microphone.
Oh, we need to hear you.
We need you for the recording, even though people in the room don't need you.
Two things. One, with regard to Bank Street, interestingly enough, prior to coming here to Princeton, when I was with Van Note Harvey Associates 18 years or so ago, I actually worked on that job with Carl Peters. So that tells you how long that's been around. And back then, I think the number was about $50,000 to $60,000 per person. So it's certainly not going to get any cheaper with regard to doing it. But unfortunately, Bank Street has been around for a very long time. Mr. Miller asked me if I would give a brief update on the solar project at the landfill at the meeting tonight. And I want to let you know that last Thursday, finally, we received our Mercer County Soil Conservation District approval. And that approval was not only for work that we have to do out at the site, but for the project itself. It was a joint application that they allowed us to submit. So that got approved, and that was one of the conditions that our DEP modified closure plan was based on. So we have sent down to the state the certification as well as something else. And as the state can do, they asked us another question today. But the consultant has responded to that. So we have satisfied at this point, looks like we have satisfied all of our requirements for that property with regard to the items that we have to do for the landfill. From a permitting standpoint, now we have to go out and do our work. There's some filling that has to be done and some other things that can be done in conjunction with GeoPeak's project. With regard to GeoPeak, they are presently still in need of approval from the Delaware Raritan Canal Commission and also an approval from the Mercer County Planning Board. So they are working towards those. The last I heard is that they are going to be targeting October 12th County Planning Board, and they continue to work with the RCC. So once they get through those approvals, they will be able to begin their work We've had numerous conference calls over the last couple of weeks, keeping everybody, the attorneys for both sides, staff from both sides, GOP, everybody up to speed. So that's where we are. I would expect that based on these approvals, GOP could probably get started mid to late October out on the River Road site. That's where we're at.
Great, Mayor.
Yeah, Ms.
What is the Delaware and Raritan Commission have to do with this?
Stormwater. And we're on the edge of one of their zones, so they have the ability to do a review.
Oh.
Yes.
And if you get started in late October, or they get started, how long do you anticipate that it will take, and then are you impacted by the weather?
They are in the process with their design and with the equipment that they need of already fabricating some of that to bring on site. There are other things that they will have to fabricate out at the site once they get the approvals to do it, in particular the footings, the concrete pads that they're going to be putting that they're going to be putting on top of the landfill, which then they will be putting the equipment on. They plan on pouring out at River Road, and then they'll cure and then moving them over. They may get started on them in the next couple of weeks of doing that, sort of starting without the approval. You know, they don't need the approvals to obviously make concrete blocks. They just need it in order to place the concrete blocks. But they anticipate if they get started in October, they've told us anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks, and they hope to keep right on plugging along and building the system.
How much, do you know off the top of your head how much impervious block there will be? I mean, do we
I
anticipate
do
a
not.
runoff problem?
Off the top of my head, I can't tell you. But they're real. They've had so far 2 PEs and some other people put together calculations for DRCC to get through this process. And quite honestly, there's really no. When they look at the cap that's already on the landfill is predominantly a clay cap to start with. So when they add the blocks, they're really not doing any. I mean, you're putting a block on top of what's already impervious. So by calculating, but they're making them go through all the iterations.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, thank you, Mr. Huff.
Thank you.
I'll just add very briefly to that the second solar project is on the agenda for this evening.
That's terrific, and thank you, Bernie, for pushing both projects towards completion. Thank you.